Well, good morning and welcome to Mwanzo TV. My name is Kevin Sewe, and today we are still talking matters of Eacop and its potential threat to the environment. And of course, to make us understand this topic and some of the issue that might arise, we are joined in studio by Mr. Michael Onduto, who is the chairman of Kenya Inter-University Environment Student Association. Well, welcome to our studio, Mr. Michael Onduto.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Probably we will start, maybe you can just tell us what is your organization doing, or rather what does this Kenya Inter-University Environment Student Association does in related to the issue of Eacop?
Okay, thank you. First, thank you for the opportunity to be with you here today to explain on Eacop and also have a discussion on the same. My name is Michael Onduto. I am a student at the Technical University of Kenya. In my final year, 5th year, I take geospatial engineering. I am an environmental and a climate advocate, and more so, I am the chairperson of the Kenya Inter-University Environmental Student Association. This is an association of environmental clubs in tertiary institutions, which currently having a member of 34 institutions registered to the association. So one of the cause of what we do in the association is, one, we want to ensure that we align the students who are also the youth in this country to understand the objective and the role they play in the environmental sector by linking them to what, of course, they need to understand outside the class aspect to now the broader aspect of understanding what they can champion in the environmental sector. This we do with our mission of now creating a responsible society, because we need to act by, of course, showing what we do and, of course, pitching outside the classwork what we really have learned in the class aspect and how we can impact the community on the same. Out of the things that we also do is promotion of innovation among students, because these are students with various ideas. These ideas, if not well incubated, if not well planned, if not well handled, may end up being misused. And this is a generation that we want to nurture because they are the future of the country. Other things that we are also doing is advocacy, because we believe that as the youth, we have a role to play. We have a role to point out to the wrong, and we have a role to promote the good. So that's some of the things that we do, as well as community engagement, now focusing on the environmental sector. That's what we do at the Kenya Inter-University Environmental Student Association.
Well, Mr. Michael, we've seen people protesting. Maybe you can make us understand, why are you protesting and probably opposing this project, which we are being told is a massive and a mega project?
Okay, thank you. We, as the Kenya Inter-University Environmental Student Association, we have been one of the organizations in the front line that are advocating against Eacop. And we've conducted campaigns against it. We've conducted climate strike walk against Eacop, because one, we believe Eacop is not focusing on us as the youth, because we believe we are the future, and promoting Eacop is one, killing our future as the youth. Why do we say so? Eacop as a project which was established in 2006, where the exploration was done in the basins of Lake Albert. When this was done, there was a realization of the oil sinks that are in the oil basins. And the main reason of this is production of energy. But as environmentalists, we believe that we need to go green in terms of energy. And we believe that as East African community, as the developing countries, we have the capacity, and even as Africa, we have the capacity to power the whole world with green energy. This is very possible. That's why we believe in there is no need to establish the Eacop project. One, because we have the capacity to produce the green energy. We have the resources to produce energy. And we know that the green energy has no impact environmentally and even in terms of the communities, in livelihood, and even in the social relationship with the environment. It is friendly to everyone. But now, focusing on Eacop, why we oppose this? These are projects that does not prioritize the community. These are projects that prioritize benefit instead of the community. That's why we, as environmentalists, we as student-led association, we believe that promoting this will, one, deprive us of the future. Why do we say so? These are projects that will not last forever, and its impact will live with us forever. And so, what can we do in order to, because what is going to provide, we have an alternative of the same. If it is energy, we have an alternative of the renewable energy. If it is employment, the alternative renewable energy projects are able to provide more employment opportunities than the Eacop project. So we believe this one is not objective. The second thing, communities are at a threat of one, reducing their lifespan. Because giving you with an example of a case study of Niger, the same exploration was done in the Niger Delta. And mark you today, the lifespan of the Niger Delta is 41 years. When you are at 42, you are viewed as an ancestor. So we want to reduce the lifespans of the people of the East African community at the expense of profit. This is very absurd. This is very unprioritized. The second thing, these communities, these projects pass through water bodies. And these water bodies are a source of livelihood to very many communities living in these areas. Most of these communities are like the communities along the lake basins of this region, depends on fishing. These projects at one point, because it has very many risks, and these risks will lead to all spillages into this point, which if spill into this will of course kill the fish, and of course in return affect the livelihood of communities that fully depend on fishing as a source of livelihood. The second thing, these projects pass through a national reserve and even wildlife reserve. And this is a threat to where it's degrading to, and of course killing the biodiversity. We understand some of the species are at threat of extinction. For example, the lions, the elephants, and when these their inhabitants are disturbed, they of course may move from their inhabitants. So we are losing our cultural value and also the tourism value that we have as the East African community. The third thing, these communities are being evacuated from their sites where they have been living. These are persons who have lived and are adopted to this area for years and years and to come. And of course, we are exposing them to threats. Mark you, we are exposing, more people who are exposed to this is the female gender. Because the communities are here, they believe there are some roles which are specified for particular genders. And of course, evacuating them, making them to adapt to a certain area, which are also not suitable for them in terms of adaptability. We are not even giving them the response mechanism on how they are going to adapt and of course suit in those areas. So we are also threatening the female gender to GBV, which is in a case, of course, has very many impacts to the East African community. There are case studies of projects which have already been done before. And these projects have had cases where there have been sexual harassment of the female gender. During the construction of these, the male are the most people who are going to take part in the construction of the pipeline. And of course, this male, they are out of some projects which have already been done within the East African community. The male have been to the sexual harassment of the women. We have been have the early pregnancies. We have the very many single mother families because of such projects. So we can't prioritize the value that we had as the East African communities for the sake of profit.
Well, Mr. Michael, you've talked about the issue of oil exploration from Lake Albert in Uganda. Probably you can tell us some of the ratio maybe each country will be getting from this project once it's completed.
Okay, thank you for that. So in terms of exploration is being done within the Lake Albert region. Yes. But then you find there is a section of it being transported through the pipeline, which is now the Eacop, to Tanga. Yes. So there is a refineries in two stages. Yes. So the first refinery is being done in Uganda. Yes. So Uganda is doing the refinery to sustain itself. For what it needs, it's what they refine according to the need that they have in Uganda. And because exporting crude oil in a crude form is a bit cheap in terms of expense than having it refined then exporting in bits and bit. So they refine what they need for that particular use in the country and then export what they want to export to the other countries in now the crude form because it is less expensive in terms of exportation. Okay.
There's also something you've talked about, that this oil pipeline will be heated as it is being transported, or rather, yeah, it is being transported. Probably you can tell us the reason of being heating this pipe, some of the impact and possible threat that might arise as this oil is being heated on this way to Tanga, Tanzania.
Okay, the pipeline is being heated because of the waxy nature of the oil. So to keep the oil on the floor, it has to be in a form where it is heated so that it is able to move, to flow all over. And they are saying they are burying it under soil to reduce. It's just a moment of reduction. So there's a level where they're not able to reduce the impact of it to the environment, which the risk is not even given a percentage. But what we believe in, the moment it is being heated, one, this is oil. And of course, there is aspect of carbon emission from this oil when it is heated. So one, there's going to be carbon emission from the heating to the environment. And this is going to increase the carbon concentration in the atmosphere. And we know as per the Paris Agreement of COP, Paris Agreement of the Conference of Parties, which was done in 2015, we agreed that we have to champion for 1.5 degrees Celsius in temperatures into the atmosphere. But now we as a developing country, we are also now contributing to increase of carbon concentration in the atmosphere, which is very, very unprioritized.
Basically, there's something we've heard that this project will be emitting carbon dioxide in the air. Probably, what are some of the effects of carbon dioxide into the air?
The risk that comes to this, one of them, I'll give a living example because of what we experience as a country and of course as a region within the African community. One thing that is now happening in the Mount Elgon region, and of course in a section of Uganda called Mubale, is now there is a flood. And this flood, we know that there's a level where if carbon is emitted to the atmosphere, the heat levels rises. And when the heat level rises is where we have the instances of global warming. When global warming happens, there is an extent where there's too much heat, where you have now the skin diseases that are now rising up. We now have an instance where the death as instances of the heart diseases, which are also coming up, the pressures into the people. These are diseases that are related to the environment indirectly because of the effects we have to the atmosphere. The second thing, after the temperatures increases, the condensation will be to the higher level. And when the condensation happens to the higher level, that's where we can now have the unpredicted rainfall patterns, which when happens, we have the instances of too much rains, which leads to too much flooding, displacement of people, loss of lives, loss of livestock, loss of everything, where we even lose the practices that we now have as a society in terms of what we do for our living.
I just want to take you back something small. You've talked about the heating of the pipeline. Now, probably, can you explain for me what will happen some of this when this pipeline pass through some of the national parks and we are heating this pipeline? Will this heat have any impact other than the soil? Will it have impact maybe to the animals, the ecosystem within the national parks?
This is something that is of course really as a concern to us as the East African community. Because as the East African community, part of our revenue generation is tourism, which is of course is not only a value to us, but is something that is of course has offered employability to the youth and of course to the citizens of these countries. When this pipeline project is going to pass through national reserve, one, there's going to be disturbance of habitat of the wildlife that are living in this area. Two, there is going to be excavation. So one, we are going to have excavation where we are going to do clearing of the forest area for the forested areas. And when you do the clearing of the forest area, one, we are doing deforestation, and one, there are some species which are to extinction, which you are going to lose as a result of the clearing. So when we do the clearing of the inhabitants of these wild animals, they'll have to seek for refuge to other particular regions, to particular places, which of course is going to affect the tourism of these particular places where they were at. And of course, it's going to interfere with the biodiversity, because one of the components of biodiversity is the wild animals. When they're not there, the value that they are bringing to that the very ecosystem has been lost. So we're going to lose the value of the ecosystem that are going to be there. We're also going to lose the species of trees, which are of course to value to us in terms of medical value, the environmental value that they give to us in terms of bringing rain, and all the formation of rain processes, which are trees play a key role. The carbon sinks and the carbon, reducing the carbon concentration in the atmosphere. This is something that of course we are going to lose as the East African community. And this is going to pose a threat in terms of increasing more carbon in the atmosphere at the point where we are going to even have instances of where more global warming, more instances of flooding in the East African communities.
Mr. Michael, basically we understand that this project, the construction of this pipeline, will pass through some national parks, some of critical ecosystems such as national park, swamps and lakes. Are we likely to cause a situation where we'll see human-wildlife conflict during this project?
That's very evident, and it has to happen, because once you disturb with the you disturb the inhabitants of these animals, they'll have to move. In the process of moving, there's instances where they encounter the human beings. They'll encounter them either in their farms, where they destroy the crops of these people, or they encounter, in an instance, there is a fight, life is lost, either the wild animals or the human being. So it's going to happen because as per now, the project does not outline how they are going to encounter or how they are going to ensure that the wildlife and human conflicts are reduced. So this is something that is very, very sure. I'm very sure it has to happen, because the animals have to move. They are not restrained to that particular area. And in the process of moving, there has to be disturbance to the humans.
I understand, Mr. Michael, during your advocacy and maybe with your team, maybe you've gone and visited some of this area that this pipeline project has passed. I don't know, how are the community affected? How are they saying? Was there something to do with public participation before this construction started? What are they saying? How have they been impacted and affected with this project?
The engagement was done, but it was done at a level where they only engage these people to understand what they need, not what they're supposed to understand, but what they want them to understand. That's why you find there's now resistance to the project by these communities. Because one, the community has now able to realize that these projects, one, there's evacuation. Second, there is no definite show of where these guys are going to be. There is no definite show of how they're going to be resettled in those particular areas. The second thing, this participation was done not in a comprehensive way, but it was done with a select committee. You find even if it's a family, it's being done by the men because they believe the man is the head of the house, not involving the woman, who is of course bears more burden in a family than a man. So it was done, but they did it to a level that they wanted to just do it as a process to make these people understand what they want them to understand, not what they need to have known of the project.
And during your course of maybe protesting, and we've seen a lot of protests are online. We've seen a lot of hashtag stop Eacop, some people taking to the street, but majority of you people, your colleagues, have been arrested. Maybe other than this issue of hashtag stop Eacop, maybe protesting, do you have any other avenues you are trying to pursue, such as maybe the courts or other international community? Do you have any other avenue that you want to ensure that this project is stopped?
Besides hashtags which we run, which is a sort of digital advocacy, because we believe in the power of digital advocacy. It has worked, and of course we have to replicate it in other scenarios like now Eacop. That's why you see hashtag like stop Eacop, which is being run by various organizations, and I thank my organization, which are more student-based, and of course we now with over 3,000 members participating actively in the Stop Eacop project. Other things that you also do is the mitigation processes which are being done in court. There are several cases which have been filed by various organizations, which include some of them which are in Kenya, because we believe this project is also going to happen, that it's also going to affect Kenya as a country as well. The other things that we also do is we call the financials of these projects. That's why there are also been reluctancy, because some of the financials are pulled out outside because of the advocacy that are being done. So we also call out the financiers that we don't need this project because it is not it's not community centered in the stage, because we believe any project that is to the benefit of the people has to be people-centered. But this is not people-centered, this is profit-centered. So we call out financials of the projects because we know some of the financials of the same project, and we call them now so that we tell them that we as the African community, please keep cool down the soil. We don't need them outside. We don't need them outside. We just say they keep the carbon in the soil. We don't need them outside, so that we don't have the exploration and the rest. And some of the financials have pulled out, but we still keep out calling onto them so that they don't prioritize profit at the expense of our life. What we also do is to ensure that we strengthen the existing policies, because there are also policies that exist in terms of exploration of such site, but the response mechanism of these policies are still lacking. So we want to strengthen these policies so that any person or any financial, any developer who wants to do such project has to find it very strict and has to align with such policies to ensure that anything that is going to happen is people-centered. Anything that is going to be done is it prioritizes the people more than the profit that's going to be developed out of the same project.
Basically, we've heard from the representatives from the Eacop, and they're saying, yes, these people are protesting, but these people doesn't see the balance between the viability, economic viability of this project, and of course the environmental. Like, you people doesn't understand that this project has a lot of benefit, both economic-wise, job creation, financial. But when you weigh between these benefits that the government or rather people will get, and you also weigh what it will be causing to the environment, you probably see the economic viability of it outweighs the hazard. What can you say about that?
The reason as to why they talk of benefit is to give, let's say, a blackmailing information that those who are campaigning against this are not they're not objective in what they're doing, which I believe is a very, very ungenuine point. Because when you talk about profit, have you considered that this profit, how is it going to impact those who are within these communities? They have not talked about how this project is going to affect the community, yet they are talking about profit. And when you are talking about employability, Africa as a whole, we now talk of the poverty percentage, the energy poverty is very high in the African countries, despite us as the African countries having the capacity to generate worldwide the green energy. So when you're talking about employability, why can't we do a project that is able to offer employability to the people and as well preserve our environment? Because we can't live without the environment, but we can live without the profit. If we're able to do a renewable energy project, which is of course able to produce the job opportunity more than the Eacop project, because one, it's going to last. Eacop is going to run for less than 30 years. After 30 years, it is done. We remain with the impact with us. But if we do a renewable energy project, this is something going to last years for years, because the renewable energy demand for countries is also increasing. Countries are going green. But here we are as the East African community want to promote a project which is of course going to degrade us environmentally. So we have an alternative of having a project that is going to generate more jobs, more than Eacop, and as well have a positive impact to the environment, more than Eacop, as well sustain us for a longer period more than Eacop. So the issue of profit is not an issue, because if we resort to renewable energy, it's going to give us more profit than Eacop. If we resort to a renewable energy, the employability is going to be more than Eacop. If we resort to renewable energy, we are going to have a sustainable project more than Eacop. So we need to have a priority. In our priority, do we take out sustainability? Do we take out impact it's going to give to the community? And to what extent is it going to last, impacting the people environmentally, economically, and even within the society at large?
Probably before this project started of Eacop, there were some reports, and we also read from other pages, we've read from newspapers, that this project will be passing through Kenya. But all of a sudden, in between this cycle, we were told that this project will no longer pass through Kenya, but it will be going from Uganda to Tanzania. Why was it stopped from going through Kenya? And Kenya is part of East Africa.
There was of the same, but because of the intense activism of Kenya, that it developed resistance from the Kenyan community. That's why there was a diversion in terms of the diverting to the project to Tanga. This is thriving in the two countries because of the humiliation of the resistance group who are campaigning, who are the majority campaigning against this project. You have, as a student association, we also have a student association in Uganda, student association in Tanzania who are campaigning against Eacop. But unlike Kenya, in Tanzania and in Uganda, if there is a complaint by this student association and other groups in terms of resisting to this project, which is unprioritized, you find there is too much arrest, which shows you how these authorities want to silence the voice of the voiceless so that they don't have a voice in pointing out what really pushed them to the wall. And that should not be the case. As a government which is working for the people, in a case of Tanzania and Uganda, we need to do what is people-based, what is prioritize the people, because if you're doing a project as a government, if you're supporting a project as a government, and this project's affecting your people, are you not parasiting on your people? It is because we, as the East African community, as the government of Tanzania and Uganda, they have not given priority to the community needs, which is, of course, a very absurd state. And that's why, as the Student Association of Kenya, the Environmental Student Association of Kenya, we call out to the extent of crossing the borders, calling even the government of Uganda, that, of course, these projects needs to be people-centered. And of course, as the youth, when you're promoting this project, you are killing our future, because the impact is going to live with us more than they're going to live with the government people, because their time is almost ending. And as the youth, we feel threatened, we feel at the farthest corner of being pushed to the shelf by this project.
Mr. Michael, as we are closing this conversation, basically you people who have gone through these areas where people were maybe relocated, were taken to other places, and we've seen people are being constructed new houses. Probably how effective or viable are these houses? Are they up to standard? Are they comfortable to the community? Are the community accepting these houses that the government have constructed for them?
It is not. One, there are going to be conflicts. You understand, even you, if you migrate from your area, you come to my area. One, I feel as the person, you as a person who have migrated to my area, there has to be that conflict within communities, because it is a big community migrating to various places. And when there is that conflict, even if you provide me with a home, it was not that I lacked the home. I had my home, I had adapted to this home, and of course I had my suitability to that home. I have adapted perfectly to that surrounding. Moving me to a particular places, you've not considered the health conditions of these people, because health condition varies depending on the environment that people are living. They are locating these people, giving them a penny in terms of compensation, rather than considering why are these people not in an intention of moving. If it was something that was well put, well outlined, well explained, nobody could have provided resistance. But because it is sort of a forced evacuation, and for an instance, there's some compensation, like now besides homes, besides houses, you find a compensation has been done, not fully. It is being done to an extent of doing a compensation that cannot even construct your home, construct your house. Even if you do a compensation, it's going to affect the learning of the people. Because let's say you evacuate people to an area where there are no schools, where there are not learning institutions, they are far from resources such as water bodies. These people are going to be affected in terms of the women are going to be subjected to go and fetch water in a very far place. The children are now not going to be able to attend schools normally, because they have to walk longer distance in seeking for education. And this is going to even increase the dropout for our students. And by doing that, we are increasing the dependency ratio, of course, increasing the poverty index within the African community. And this is, of course, promoting reliance to the West community.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael, and we appreciate you coming to our studio, and we believe next time when we will be needing you for some of this insightful conversation will be part of it. Thank you so much. Well, that has been Mr. Michael Onduto, chairman of Kenya Inter-University Environment Student Association, talking to us, explaining to us why they are opposing the Eacop project, and of course, why are they protesting the construction of Eacop project. My name is Kevin Sewe, and of course, this conversation is still on. Until next time, goodbye for now.